Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. Always delighted when we have a chance to sit down with top researcher, our good buddy, John Mittendorf, with us today. And we have a lot to talk about. Your mic's not on. You better turn your mic on there. So let me figure this out. Hold on. Pull that out. Let me go. This is live television, folks, and this is the way we do things. So he's so busy talking that he forgets to turn his mic on, but that's okay. He doesn't need a mic. Anyway, good morning to you. Happy going on here. We're talking about something today that's very much in the minds of a lot of people. It has to do with Bible prophecy. I like the way you put it. Bible prophecy is history. Let me see if I get this. It's history foretold that hasn't happened.
Written in advance.
Yeah, history written in advance.
Right.
Good way of putting it. So we're talking about Ezekiel 38:39, book in the Old Testament, which deals with the term, you hear a lot of it, Gog and Magog. We're going to talk about that. Are we living these days? That's a big part of what we're talking about. And let me just say this, John, as he so typically does, and just does a beautiful job, 22 pages of notes, and all footnoted, all documented, so you can back search everything that he's done, and they are free. And where do they get them, John?
creationtruth.info.
All right, so go to creationtruth.info. There's the landing page, and you can click on and get today's notes or any of the other notes that we've talked about. Now, this becomes a great foundation if you ever want to have your own Bible study personally or maybe with a group. So go to creationtruth.info and you can download the notes today of Gog and Magog. So I'm trying to remember, because you and I are old now and we forget things.
Mature.
Why did we take on this
Mature's a better name.
Why did we decide this?
Well, you know, a couple of reasons. People are kind of tuned in, particularly prophecy buffs, on the term Gog and Magog war. And as you know, at the end of the tribulation, Satan is grabbed, thrown in the abyss, while Christ does the millennial, 1,000 years. At the end, Christ allows Satan to escape. And in Revelation 20, it's very clear that Satan gathers all of the nations from the four corners of the earth, and they come against Christ, and Christ defeats them. That is called the Gog-Magog war. But that is not the only Gog and Magog war. And I thought this one was particularly applicable today because is Israel in the news today? Oh boy, are they ever. Not only militarily, but with all of the people that are against Israel. Of course, you have Hamas back on December 7th and all of that. But if you go into the Old Testament, between Lamentations. When's the last time you studied Lamentations, right?
Oh, it was last night, John.
For prophecy.
Yeah.
Between Lamentations and Daniel, there's the book of Ezekiel. Mm-hmm. Ezekiel is a fascinating book because it talks about up to chapter 38. It talks about the return of Israel to their land, which was 1948. Correct.
May 10th.
Then in Ezekiel 40 through 48, 48 is the last chapter. It talks very, very specifically. And let me back up. Ezekiel was a prophet 2,600 years ago. So basically, Ezekiel was written 2,600 years ago before any of this ever happened, including the millennial temple. And the millennial temple is the temple that Christ is going to build when he's here on earth for 1,000 years. And the millennial temple, anything you want to know about it, the dimensions, the way it looks, what's inside of it, what they're going to do, it's all in Ezekiel. But in between Israel becoming a nation in 1948 and the millennial temple is Ezekiel 38 and 39, and that is the other Gog and Magog war. And what is going to happen in that one is that the Muslim countries are going to march on Israel to destroy them. Basically all the Muslim countries. And God is going to destroy them on the mountains of Israel. Destroy them.
Okay, so let me ask a couple more foundational questions. Was, at the time, the Six-Day War considered the Gog-Magog?
Yes, but it wasn't, because the Gog...
No, it wasn't, but at the time, I'm wondering if they considered that.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And one thing about prophecy you have to be careful of is when things start to line up, people go, oh, well, we're getting ready to go. That may or may not be true.
Okay.
And one of the things that I think that is very interesting about prophecy is God gives us the mountaintops, but he doesn't give us the valleys, and that just drives people crazy. Come on, give me the details, the details. And it's like this Gog and Magog war, where the Muslim countries march on Egypt to destroy them.
You mean Israel?
Excuse me, on Israel.
Yeah.
And then God is going to destroy them on the mountains of Israel. When you look at that, it is very specific, which we're going to go through, on who the countries are exactly, why God is doing it, how he does it, and the aftermath, what happens afterwards.
Okay.
And all of that is there with one exception. He gives you all the details except when's it going to happen. And that's what drives people crazy.
I have to say this because we're going to set it up here and it's going to be interesting. I don't expect you to answer this, and I've asked Rick Boya this.
Okay.
Okay. I should ask Dustin Jernigan this.
Okay.
Dr. Jernigan.
Right, doctor, right.
Yeah. Why are there 3, some would say 4, interpretations of eschatology? Why wasn't God clear about one of them?
Because basically, and when you study this, to me, this is a good example, that when you study this war, Ezekiel 38 and 39, if you have 4 scholars, if you have 10 scholars, you have 4 opinions. If you have 10 scholars, you have 10 opinions.
And the very fact that it doesn't give the time
right.
is reserved in God, and we are not to know it.
We're not to know it. It's when is Christ coming again? Nobody knows,
Okay.
Not even him.
Okay. All right, walk us through, Coach.
Well, okay. Now, why is this prophecy important today? And I can think of a couple good reasons. It's God's future plan for Israel and the countries opposed to Israel. Okay? And then the necessary elements are in place right now as we speak for this war. And let me give you the big 5.
Okay.
And see if this rings a bell.
All right.
First of all, you have to have Israel scattered and regathered as a nation.
1948.
1948, okay. You have to have a strong, hostile nation to the north of Israel.
Lebanon, Hezbollah.
Russia.
And Russia.
Russia. It's interesting. You talk about geography in the Bible.
You're going way north.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, way north.
Okay.
When you talk about geography, and we'll talk a little bit about this too, that everything basically is from Jerusalem. If you go north from Jerusalem, what do you find? If you go south from Jerusalem, east, west, but it's all from Jerusalem. So in this one, if you go north, what do you find? You're going to find Russia.
Okay.
Okay. Number 3. You have to have Israel isolated from other nations of the world. Would you say that is fairly true today?
All alone.
And getting worse also. Actually, the United States is the only nation left, per se, that is backing Israel.
Right.
Okay? Number 4. They have to be dwelling with security and confidence. Now, that one is highly debatable. The answer is yes if you compare Israel to pre-1948. If you look at Israel post-1948, yes, they are dwelling more secure than they were prior to 1948. Agreed? Now, what is the biblical definition of that? Nobody really knows when you say they have to be dwelling with security and confidence. You could say they're doing that now, but I think December 7th, when Hamas attacked them, illustrated the fact they're not quite as secure and not quite as comfortable as they thought they were.
Okay.
So that's debatable.
Okay.
So I'm going to give that one an almost. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Okay. And then lastly, check this one out. Israel has to possess the mountains of Israel. That happened in 1967, the Six-Day War. Why is that important? Because God is going to destroy the Muslim countries, and the Bible's very specific, on the mountains of Israel.
So, why is there always this argument to give them away? The West Bank and others.
That's correct. The argument is there, but they're still there.
They're still there.
Right?
They're still there.
So when I say why is it important today, it's important because, as we're going to see, God takes care of his people. But secondly, the elements for the Gog-Magog war and the destruction of the Muslim companies, everything is in place for it to happen. So is it relevant today? It's very relevant.
Yeah, and whoever thought Syria would fall.
Yeah, exactly right.
So, I mean, they're really surrounded.
Now, out of all of that, there's one big major question, and we might as well tackle that one right now. And this one really drives prophecy experts crazy. Is America mentioned in Bible prophecy?
Let's go back to the black chocolate forest cake.
I'll tell you what, take a break and I'll go over to Costco real quick and I'll be right back. How's that?
No, so, okay, there's so many theories here. Where are you going to go with this?
Well, I've got an answer.
Don't tell me it's in the name Jerusalem where you have USA in the middle of the term Jerusalem.
No. I can if you want me to.
No, that's all right.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
Let me answer the question two different ways, and you're going to say, what are you going for, a political office? Yeah, no. The answer to the question is America is not directly mentioned anywhere in the Bible. Anywhere.
Okay.
Okay?
Indirectly?
That's the... Okay, you asked.
Okay.
Now, is it mentioned indirectly? And the answer is...
Maybe.
Maybe yes, and maybe yes.
Okay.
Okay? Let me explain that.
The eagle?
When we no, I'm not going to go with
Good. All right. I'm just trying to poke you a little bit. Go ahead.
Yeah, go out there. Well, you better hang on because I might poke back here a little bit. Okay, now, when I say maybe, what I mean by maybe. Okay, if Christ is going to be here for the 1,000 years, he is. After that, if he's going to allow Satan to deceive, and I'm quoting from Revelation 20, deceive all the nations, and it says from the four corners of the earth. When Christ destroys all of the nations at the very end, okay? If the United States is still around at that time, then the United States is looped in with all of the nations of the earth in the four corners. It's a little bit of a stretch, but if the United States is there, they're included in that. So that's what I say, indirectly, yes. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Secondly, and this one is even a little bit more of a stretch, but it's a possibility. When we get into the listing of the exact nations that are going to be marching on Israel, the Muslim nations, there's a very interesting comment. And the comment is, Sheba and Dedan is one of the names that's used on the states, and those are the Gulf states. Within that, you have, it says, Sheba, Dedan, and the merchants of Tarshish. The merchants of Tarshish are Phoenicians in modern Spain. Now, this is all history. But it also says Tarshish with all the young lions thereof. Okay, now hang on to this one. Tarshish is associated with the West. That's England. And England is another location known as Tarshish. The young lions could be, keyword could, be a reference to colonies emerged from Europe. That's even the United States. So if Tarshish was in England, the young lions thereof, which is the biblical reference to this, that could be a reference to the U.S., Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. And interestingly, the symbol on the English flag is a lion.
Commonwealth.
Mm-hmm. So, is that a prophecy stretch? Yes. Is it a possibility? Maybe.
Okay, let me take a break here because I have a third one.
Okay.
It's popped up recently.
Okay.
Okay, we'll talk about that. By the way, you can get these notes, Gog and Magog. Obviously, we're not going to get through all this today, so that's okay. I like having John around. You can go to creationtruth.
It's creationtruth.info.
I got to remember that. Creationtruth.info. You can download these notes. They're absolutely free. Please let us know where you're listening or watching from. We'd like to have that information. 22 pages with all the footnotes. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. Okay, welcome back. And John Mittendorf's with us. He's a researcher and an apologist, and he has done so many discussions through the years for various things. I will say this, you spark a lot of response. Now, I have to put the response in the category as okay and not so okay.
Or where'd you get that guy from?
Where'd you get that guy? Anyway, you can go to creationtruth.info and you can download these notes absolutely free. It has all the footnotes. I certainly encourage you to do that. And any other discussion we've had, John does it.
Right.
This is his ministry. He's just giving it away. I mean, folks, he's doing the work for you. And this becomes great material for Bible studies. We're talking about Gog and Magog, Ezekiel 38 and 39. We're talking about, is the United States mentioned in this prophecy or in the end times prophecy? And you gave the reference to the lion, which would have been the Commonwealth countries, because the lion's part of their flag and all that. Would that include the United States based upon an island and all that coming from England?
Right.
Okay. The one that I'm hearing today is this. We know that the Muslim countries consider Israel the small Satan and the United States the big Satan.
The big Satan.
We also know the scripture says, I'll bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you.
Correct.
There seems to be, through the years, especially since 1948, an unbreakable bond between the United States and Israel. I mean, it's been stretched a few times, especially during the Biden administration, but at the end of the day, these two countries are synonymous. In fact, in our founding, we have the Judeo-Christian heritage of America. So one of the things that I'm hearing is we're synonymous. The United States and America could be synonymous.
And the key word to me that you just said, could be.
Could be.
Could be.
Yeah, I'm not saying it is.
That is correct, but I'm just
Okay.
saying to people that are saying that,
Yeah.
it's called, to me, it's called a prophetic stretch. Is when I talked about the young lions, you know, in Tarshish.
That's a stretch.
It's a stretch, but it's a possibility. Yeah, it's a possibility. Is the United States going to be there in the end times in the final battle with Christ when Satan brings them in from the forecourt? Possibly, if we're still around. And it's a little bit of a stretch. But the bottom line is the United States mentioned in Bible prophecy? And the answer is no.
So why is the most powerful nation on the face of the earth not in the Bible?
And that is a good question. So let's go over six. I wrote down six, I think, items of consideration on why not.
Okay.
Why not, okay?
Okay.
So if you have any comments, throw them in. Number one, and these are not in order of importance. America remains strong but unmentioned, which is a very real possibility. And just because we're not mentioned doesn't mean that we're not there. America really is only 250 years old. I mean, look at England. Power that goes back in time along. England isn't mentioned specifically in the Bible, so they're not. So, okay. Number two, America elects an isolationist president. That is a possibility, as I think Biden somewhat demonstrated. If you just want to go back and just say we're tired of being the world's policeman, okay, we're just going to cruise for a while. Okay, isolationist president.
Make America great again, does that fit that?
Well, that's flipping the card the other way, so to speak, yeah. Now we're back up top again. So, but if Trump isn't there, let's say J.D. Vance makes it the next time around, maybe things, but then is it possible to go, oh yeah, I mean, we just go up and down, up and down. So, number three, this one is a biggie. America is weakened from internal attack. Think about that one for a minute, particularly the last 4 years. And in doing some study on that, your security experts virtually agree that is an internal attack possible in the next 10 years? More likely than not is their answer.
Yeah.
More likely than not.
Yeah, I think we're sensing and feeling it. We know there's something wrong with the core.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of truth, too, that when you look at Iran sitting over there, in fact, the buildup over in Dago Garcia, which is that little island over in the Indian Ocean, In fact, I was just looking at it last night. There's at least 5 B-2s there, maybe 7.
I read that last night myself.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
B-2s are one of the few bombers that can carry the big bunker busters.
Yeah.
And when you start, I'm going to say, putting B-2s in a specific spot that are not that far from Iran, you're not talking about just going after the Houthis and people.
No.
You're talking about hardened targets. And so you also have 2 carrier groups that are over there now also. Mm-hmm. So
something's brewing.
Something's brewing, and there's a little message.
Yeah.
But at any rate, if Iran does have terror cells in the United States, and the United States is well aware of this, it'd be very easy for Iran to say, okay, let's go for it. Yeah. And atomic weapons now, of course, the dirty bombs are to the point that it's not that much difficult anymore to use that. So at any rate, America is weakened from internal attack, and that wouldn't be that difficult. Next, America will lose influence from internal decay. So we want to talk about moral decay, porn, sexual promiscuity, homosexuality, abortion, alternative lifestyles. And if you look right back at the Roman Empire, what brought the Roman Empire down? And it wasn't military.
Yeah. Moral decadence.
Moral decadence is exactly right. Mm. Okay, number 5, America is weakened from the rapture. And here's a couple of figures for you. As we know, the true believers in Christ will depart instantly. That means America will instantly lose somewhere between 25 to 65 million people. That is double the entire population of LA, Chicago, New York, and Houston, all gone in an instant. Will that bring America to its knees?
Interesting.
And a lot of people feel that if that happens, well, I shouldn't say if that happens, when it happens, that America will join the European Union to become the dominant world power.
Yeah.
Okay.
The thought I had in my mind was President Trump floating the idea of joining England. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That happened like 3 days ago.
So out of the ones that I've read so far, America remains strong but unmentioned. Yeah, that's a great possibility. Mm-hmm. America weakened from internal attack. That is a very real possibility. Internal decay, yeah, that's a possibility.
We may be recovering from that.
We may be recovering from that. That's correct.
Right.
America weakened from the rapture. That will happen. And the question is when.
But so will everybody else.
Correct.
Okay.
And then the last one, the dollar will be significantly weakened. And of course, as you know, that BRICS, which is Russia, China, India, UAE, Brazil, Ethiopia, and some other countries, are trying to replace the American dollar. And of course, if you ask an economist, what's our Achilles heel, they'll tell you our current debt. Our federal debt is currently $36 trillion, and unfunded liabilities is $120 trillion. All of that is unsustainable.
Yeah.
Currently unsustainable.
Yeah. To add to that equation, we're talking possibilities here now. Mm-hmm. Is Bitcoin's creating another currency?
Correct. And Iran, as we speak, does not take the American dollar in exchange for oil.
Yeah.
So there is a movement to replace the American dollar. So what I'm saying is we look at America, it's a God-based nation. Yes, we have the strongest military in the history of the earth. Yes, but there's a lot more that defines a nation than just the military, as the Roman Empire graphically demonstrated.
Okay, so people know these are possibilities.
They're all possibilities.
And we're looking at that. So we're asking the question, why isn't the most powerful nation on earth mentioned in Bible prophecy?
And you know, you can say, Perry, that why isn't the most powerful ever on the face of the earth not mentioned in the Bible?
Yeah.
I mean, Medo-Persians, the Romans, I mean, you just keep going back to Babylonians. Yes, they were all the big guns at their time, but nothing in the past in reality compares with what the United States is capable of doing today.
Is that a stretch to think that, given the reference in today's world by the largest enemy of Israel, which is the Muslim faith,
Correct.
looks at America and Israel as being synonymous.
Yeah, that's why they call Israel the little Satan and they call us the big Satan, because we finance Israel. We give Israel a major portion of the capabilities that they're capable of doing. So without us, Israel would really be more of a shadow than they are today.
But isn't that also scriptural? Because we are blessing Israel, and God would bless us.
Yeah, that is Genesis 12:3.
Yeah.
I will bless them who bless you and curse them who curse you. Exactly right.
So I don't know how far that goes, but it's certainly on the table.
You bet it is.
Okay, where are we going to go next? We'll take a break, but where are we going to go next?
Okay, let's take a break, and then after that, let's go right into Ezekiel 38, and let's go right through and talk about what God actually says, the how, when, why, where, and how He's going to do it.
John Mittendorf, not me, him. All right, check this out, creationtruth.info. You can go to that website, download these notes, 22 pages worth with the footnotes, or any other discussion that we previously had. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. John Mittendorf's with us, top researcher, apologist. We're talking about Gog and Magog, mentioned in the Old Testament book of Ezekiel, the great prophet, especially chapters 38 and 39, where often are used and quoted as it deals with eschatology, which is the study of end times. I don't know if John's Gog and I'm Magog, but we're here to talk about it. And we tried to figure out why in all Bible prophecy is the most powerful nation on earth not mentioned. And there are a lot of theories and thoughts, but there must be a reason why it isn't specifically mentioned. I don't know what that is.
Right.
But God does.
Exactly.
All right, so let's start with Ezekiel 38. Where are we going here?
Okay,
Coach?
so this portion, let's talk about the who, what, when, where, why, how, and basically this is going to be God's perspective. And so if people have their Bible handy, turn to Ezekiel 38, and you can double check me on this as we go through this, because I'm going to be quoting exactly. And what I've done is I've slimmed this down. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read the interesting parts that I think puts this all into perspective. Number one, the purpose. Why is this happening? And that's basically starts in Ezekiel 38, verse 4. And this is what God says. I will turn you around. He's talking about the Muslim countries here. Put hooks into your jaws, lead you out with all of your army. And I will turn you around indicates that God is in complete control. They think that they're coming after Israel for great spoil, which we'll see in a minute, also to destroy Israel. But in reality, it's God behind the scenes turning them around for His purposes. Okay? And what He does is He uses an overwhelming coalition of Muslim countries to invade Israel. But what He does is He imposes the ultimate judgment on the invaders, which is their destruction. But what's really cool when it says put hooks into your jaws, that's an equestrian term of a special bridle that makes a rebellious horse obey the rider's commands. Mm-hmm. And so are the Muslim countries obeying God's commands? You bet, because here they come. Which leads us to probably the big one. Who is coming after Israel?
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
You're going to list the
Some of this is, some of this is a little bit debatable, but I'm going to say, and I've been over the Hebrew scholars on this, and they're pretty well in tune. So this is what the Bible says. Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog, the prince of Rosh, Mish, and Tubal, and prophesy against him and say, thus says the Lord God. And remember, this is Ezekiel writing this 2,600 years ago. These countries didn't exist back then. The Muslim Islamic faith didn't exist back then. Mm-hmm. Okay? And say, thus says the Lord God, behold, I am against you, O Gog, the prince Rosh, Mishash, Tubal, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya are with them all, with the shield and the helmet, Gomer and all its troops, the house of Togarmah from the far north and all its troops. Many people are with you, Sheba, Dedan, the merchants of Tarshish, there's that part again, and all their young lions will say to you, have you come to take great plunder? So let me go back and take each one because it's fascinating. And when I get done with this list, Perry, which really is not surprising, I'm going to ask you a question. What do all these countries have in common?
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Gog. Gog means a high, supreme, a height or high mountain. So it refers to a king-like role, a prince, a leader, a czar. So Gog is going to be the leader of the coalition.
Okay.
Okay. Rosh is modern Russia. Ezekiel 39:2 states that Rosh is in the uttermost parts of the north. And north is understood in reference to Israel as the central point. So Russia is north. When you go, if you draw a line from Jerusalem north, you come right into Russia.
Okay.
Okay. Then you have Magog. That includes modern Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and possibly parts of northern Afghanistan. Then you had Meshech and Tubal, modern Turkey. Then you had Persia. Well, Persia became Iran in 1935. Okay. Cush, which is Sudan, Ethiopia, and Eritrea. Then you have Put, which is Libya and possibly Algeria and Tunisia. Then we had Gomer, either modern-day Turkey or Germany. Togarmah, likely Turkey, Armenia, and Central Asia. And many peoples, which may include Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan. How's that for an army?
Wow.
What do they all have in common?
Well, I'm trying to think. There's several things, but I'm going to reserve from embarrassing myself. What's the answer?
Well, it's easy. They're all Muslim or a high percentage of Muslim, and they all have a hate for Israel. Muslim countries. Yeah, see. At the end of that, this thing comes back up again. Sheba, Dedan, the merchants of Tarshish, and all their young lions. What's interesting is that portion, and this is what Ezekiel 38, 1 through 63 says. And what they say is, have you come to take great plunder? So in other words, the countries this and their young lions is talking about just say, hey, what are you guys doing? But they don't really do anything. So it seems to indicate that they don't like what's going on, but they don't really have any power to do anything about it. So, hey, what are you guys doing? And that's the end of that. Okay, so basically that's what that part means. Now, the other thing in that list of nations, you know, Sudan, Ethiopia, Libya, Algeria, I mean, you go right down the line, it's just, they're all Muslim countries, Islamic, and they all share a hate of Israel. But there was two missing countries in that list. One of them was Egypt. Why not Egypt? Because Egypt signed a peace treaty in 1976 at Camp David. Okay?
Wow.
Okay, and then...
Because today Egypt's complicit to the problem.
Correct. They are complicit to a point.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had no Iraq wasn't in there. Well, there's no dictator there now. Saddam, he's gone. So it's interesting, there's just a couple of nations that aren't in there. Okay?
Okay.
So any questions on that? And when you take all of the countries that we just listed, and basically you look at a map and you look at all of the countries up north and around Israel, when you look at all those countries and they march on Israel, you are talking about an immense group coalition coming down to march on Israel.
All right, so there's a couple things here. According to the scripture you just read, God puts a hook in their jaw, pulls them into this.
Pulls them down into Israel.
So there must be a pre-coalition of some sort of these nations. They must be some kind of a behind-the-scenes agreement that they're going to
There's
march.
a behind-the-scenes agreement, and then the prophecy is also straightforward in that Russia is leading it down. So why is Russia involved? You know what's interesting about Russia, Perry, is if you go back on Russia's history, when Israel became a nation in 1948, and that's when Truman was president.
Right.
Okay. United States was the first country that recognized Israel as a nation. To a large degree, who was the second country? It was Russia. Recognized Israel as a nation. But something changed within there, and it's interesting that the Six-Day War, 1967, Russia was ready to march on Israel, but backed off when Johnson took the Sixth Fleet and pressured them, and they backed off. They also backed off in 1973 in that war. when Nixon pressured them. So Russia, if you read Sekulo's book, Jerusalem, or Dorgold, who used to be the late ambassador to the United States, both of their books give the history of Israel and Russia really has been after Israel ever since 1948.
Okay, so let me ask you a question here. I think it fits about here. Isn't Russia's motive for going after Israel different than the Islamic nations?
Yes.
Okay, and that's the issue.
Yes, and I'm going to get to that in just a minute.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah,
my brain's going here.
Yeah, I'll get to that. Well, yeah, people are probably asking, well, why does Russia have this? Because, like you say, they're not really a predominantly Muslim country.
They're not. They're an Orthodox country, but there's another motive.
Yeah, economics.
Okay.
And I'll get to that.
And warm water.
Warm water port. The Baltic Sea doesn't work 24/7.
Okay.
So,
Okay. All right.
yeah. And Israel is a lot richer than most people think. Also, in fact,
minerals and everything.
I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. But
Okay,
the
go ahead.
Dead
I'm
Sea.
sorry. That's what I do.
Yeah, people ask me, how do you keep Perry straight? I say, well, it's not real easy. So, okay, here we go. Now, when is this going to happen? Key question, okay?
Okay.
And this is what Ezekiel says. After many days, you will be visited. He's talking about Israel. You will be visited. You're not a kid. In the latter years, there's the key phrase, you will come into the land of those brought back from the sword and gathered. And what that means is Israel has been brought back from the sword prior to 1948, brought back, and of course they declared themselves as a nation in 1948. From many people on the mountains of Israel, which had long been desolate, they were brought out of the nations, and now all of them dwell safely. And you can make a case that they have dwelled safer post-48 than they were pre-48.
Oh, by far.
By far.
Yeah, primarily because of their military strength. Yeah.
What is the definition of latter years? And that's Israel's restoration, which is May 1948. So the invading Muslim coalition will make its final bid for the land. Get rid of the little Satan. That's going to be their final bid. Any questions on that?
I just wonder where the Abrahamic Accord comes in. That tells me it falls apart.
Yeah, time will tell.
Yeah.
Time will tell. A couple key words in there. The Hebrew word for brought back means to return or restore. Israel's been returned or restored. Gathered is frequently used to refer to God's final regathering of Israel, okay, 1948. Dwell safety, and that one, a lot of scholars debate that one. What does that really mean? As we just talked about, are they safer now than before? Yes, they are. Post-48, yeah. But I think Hamas graphically illustrated the fact they're not as safe as they thought they were. Okay. Now, if you take all of that and you boil that down, if you want to step out on thin ice, and by the way, am I on thin ice here?
Yeah, you're John Mittendorf. You can handle it.
Well, let me step out on thinner ice then.
Thinner ice, yeah.
A lot of people are looking at after the rapture and before the tribulation.
Ooh.
However, it could happen at any time because the 5 key points that we mentioned, the mountains of Israel, 1948 and so on, all that has happened, so it could happen tomorrow, okay? What's interesting is, and we're going to get in this a little bit, that after the battle, it's going to take Israel 7 years to burn all of the weapons and 7 months to bury all of the bodies. But if it takes 7 years to burn all of the weapons, it has to be before the tribulation sometime. Okay? Now,
Don't write me.
here comes the why.
Okay.
Why is God doing this? I thought you never asked.
Okay.
To capture great spoil and to seize plunder, which brings up a great point. What do you mean, great spoil and to seize plunder? As we talked about, currently Russia only, basically their big port is Murmansk, which isn't open all the time, Baltic Sea. So they're looking for a warm water port. If you look at Israel, their citrus exports are 1 billion. Agriculture exports are 3.3 billion. They lead the world in exports. Industrial oils, fertilizers, polished diamonds. The mineral deposits in the Dead Sea cannot be appraised. Israel has the 26th largest economy in the world. And yet Israel is no bigger than
New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there an economic positive if Russia again wants to rule the world, an economic benefit to Russia, and then being able to, let's say, be the dominant power in the Mideast? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Okay? But who's orchestrating everything?
Well, God is. Let me take a quick break.
Okay.
Take a deep breath and go to creationtruth.info. That's the website. Download these notes and the footnotes, and you can cross-check the information that he's sharing with us today. When we come back, what's the next big question?
The reason for this.
Okay.
Okay.
And the winner.
And the winner.
We'll be right back.
That was easy.
All right, welcome back. John Mittendorf's with us. Today's subject is Gog and Magog, the war there, Ezekiel 38 and 39 in the Old Testament. A lot of interpretations of these scriptures. And John has made his notes available to you, so you can go to creationtruth.info. Mm-hmm. This is a website that's been created just for this. You can download these notes with all of the footnotes, along with any other discussion that John and I have taken on. But today we are certainly aware of the fact that Israel is surrounded by a lot of enemies, and they're still standing. And Gog and Magog and Ezekiel 38, 39 deal with this. All right, so we went to the why and the wealth that's involved.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back to wealth just a minute, because one thing I didn't talk about was if Russia is looking at Israel for an economic gain or benefit, does Israel offer them oil, energy? And the answer is potentially yes. Israel right now has potentially the third largest shale oil reserve in the world. And the Tamar and Leviathan, boy, that's a word I have always had, Leviathan, deep water natural gas fields. So Israel potentially has serious energy considerations along with an economic benefit.
Isn't that in itself an issue? Because look how small it is and how rich it is.
Yeah, exactly.
And natural resources and everything else. Yeah.
Now, why does God want to go through this and do this? And I call this the reason. Quoting, "You will come from your place out of the remote parts of the earth," and that's these nations we've just talked about, "you and many people," boy, that's an understatement, "with you," and here we go, "that I will bring you against my land," Israel, "so that the nations may know me and make myself known in the sight of many nations, and then they will know that I am the Lord." You know what's interesting about this battle, Perry, is the entire world will watch this on television at home. The entire world. Okay, continuing. "My holy name I will make known in the midst of my people Israel, and I will not let my holy name be profaned anymore. And the nations will know that I am the Lord, the Holy One in Israel, and all the nations will see my judgment, which I have executed in my hand, which I have laid on them. And the house of Israel," and this is the big one, "will know that I am the Lord their God from that day onward." Israel will realize that God is the God of gods, finally. Finally. When it's obvious that here comes a coalition that Israel is not capable of handling, and the coalition, as we'll see here in just a minute, is destroyed on the mountains of Israel.
Okay, so there's an ingredient here that's very important to the Jewish faith, the Messiah.
The Messiah, correct.
So, is at that the point the scales drop from their eyes? Because Jesus is the Messiah, He is the Lord?
Yes, as this says, and again, I'm quoting again, "and the house of Israel will know that I am the Lord their God from that day onward."
Okay, so
no doubt in their mind.
That's the moment, okay.
Okay. Now, if that's interesting, let's go to the method. How does God do this?
Yeah, quickly, because I have a big question here.
Okay. He is going to, well, just real quickly, He's going to use a great earthquake. Every man's sword will be against his brother. There's going to be pestilence. He's going to use torrential rain with hailstones, fire and brimstone. "I will strike your bow from your left hand and dash down your arrows from your right hand." So what God is going to do, He's going to use an earthquake. And it says in Ezekiel 19 through 20 The mountains will be thrown down along the pathways, and the walls will collapse. The intensity will cause all the creatures of the earth to feel its effect. There's also going to be infighting, and the invading countries are going to be turning and killing each other. Every man's sword will be against his brother, is what that means. There's going to be disease, and the Bible uses the word pestilence, which is an epidemic disease. And then there's going to be, and this is Ezekiel 38:22, rain, hailstones, fire, and burning sulfur, which is brimstone. Heard that one before? Sodom and Gomorrah. So basically, God is going to take the invading coalition, all of them, and destroy them on the mountains of Israel using 4 steps: earthquake, infighting, disease, rain, hailstones, fire, burning sulfur. And then Ezekiel continues and says it will take Israel, the people of Israel, 7 years to burn all of the weapons and 7 months to bury all of the dead.
Okay, so that brings into play something that in all the interviews I do that constantly pops up. I don't think we in the West understand the level of the rivalry within the Islamic faith between the Shiites and the Sunnis. And so we don't understand it. And that war's been going on for, thousands of years from the beginning. So when it refers that they turn on each other, because the Shiites and the Sunnis both want the credit of taking Israel out.
Correct.
So they turn on each other because things go crazy.
Yeah, the infighting.
So Israel wins this without firing a shot?
Correct. Never fires a shot.
Pretty amazing.
Pretty amazing. In fact, if you go back in Ezekiel to Ezekiel 38:18 through 22, that my fury will mount up in my anger, in my zeal, and in my blazing wrath. I declare that on that day there will surely be, and then it goes through it, great earthquake, every man's sword will be against his brother, etc., etc., etc. And why is he doing that? Because God is just finally tired of his name being profaned, and he's going to demonstrate to Israel, without a shadow of a doubt, that he is their God.
Okay, so big question here. Where is the church in this? Where is God's people in this? Are they here? Gone?
Well, that's a question. When does it happen? Does it happen right before the tribulation? Does it happen in between the tribulation and the rapture? Does it happen before the rapture? Okay. If it was to happen, let's say, in, I'm going to say the near future, where's God? Everybody's watching. And
because I guess, again, this goes back to the clarity of eschatology. And I want to say this respectfully, folks. I'm going to do a show down the road with some very smart people about the differing views of eschatology. With one thing in mind, not to win the argument, to educate people of the views, you have to decide. But the point being here is, why is God not telling you the time of this? I mean, that's a big part of this. And the answer is, the only answer you can come up with is, it's God's business, not ours.
It's God's business, not ours. Exactly right.
Yeah.
And the Bible says we're supposed to be ready. So if we did know a lot of the times, then the ready wouldn't be as much of a necessity as it would be if you don't know the time. If you don't know the time, Christ can come tomorrow. He can come right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we flippantly say that sometimes, but when you look at the conditions of the world today, and we have the technology to inform everybody today. No longer what's happening in the Middle East is a secret. It's on our television every night.
To go back and answer your question on the why, the reason, this is Ezekiel 38:15 through 17, is very clear. So that the nations may know me. That's the nations, the world. May know me and make myself known in the sight of many nations, then they will know that I am the Lord. And then it continues on and it says, and the house of Israel will know that I am the Lord, their God, from that day onward.
All right, so isn't it interesting that God is the God who's the God of nature is going to use natural things to end the war? Earthquakes.
Which he did in Sodom and Gomorrah.
All right, so
okay,
nature's God, if I can put it that way,
yeah,
is going to use the creation of his nature to do this. It's different than him just physically showing up through Jesus and waving a wand. That's not the case.
No, it'll. I think it'll be very, very obvious when you say, okay, number 1 is earthquake, number 2 is infighting. They're going to start fighting each other. Number 3 is going to be disease, petulance. But number 4, rain, hailstones, fire, and burning sulfur. Burning sulfur has to come from heaven. By that time, it'll be obvious. This is the Lord.
Well, folks, as hard as this is, it's good news that God is in control. And the question you have is, do you know the God that's in control? And everything is moving into His purposes. I think that's the thing that we understand. Even the bad things are bringing about His purpose. It's kind of hard to swallow and process sometimes. But when you look at the 30,000-foot view, God is very much in control. And there is an amazing reward for those who are true to Him.
It's also points the information pointer at America and America's support of Israel over the many years. Genesis 12:3, I will bless them who bless you and curse them who curse you. So what has America done over the years? Well, since 1948, started with President Truman.
By the way, and he was alone when he made that decision.
Yes, he was.
So it goes back to the question, why isn't America specifically mentioned? The most powerful nation on earth.
The most powerful nation on earth ever in the history of this planet. But it's possible that America is, it's possible. America is still around, but it's also possible America is not. And we went over some reasons why we may not be.
Or is it synonymous?
Yeah, exactly.
With Israel.
It's just that your prophecy experts go, why can't America be in there? Well, why isn't England in there? And so on.
CreationTruth.info, that's the website. You can go there, CreationTruth.info. You can download these notes absolutely free with the footnotes. John has done the homework for you, and 22 pages worth. And any of the other discussions that we've talked about, you can download those. John, I want to say thank you. I know this is a passion of yours. I know
you know who learns the most? I say, you know who learns the most is the author.
Yeah, the teacher always does. Yeah. What's next? What are we doing next?
I'm working on that.
Okay. That's a subject not in the Bible.
Yeah.
I'm working on that. It's not in the Bible. All right. Thanks, John. God bless you, pal.
You bet. Thanks.